Hello and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. My name is John Ruark. I will be your moderator tonight, and I am still a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. I will hand it off to Robert Johnson.
Hey guys, Robert Johnson here, the Worshipful Master of Waukegan Lodge number 78 this year, and the host of the Masonic podcast, Whence Came You? Thanks, John.
Thank you, Robert. Nick Johnson.
I am Nick Johnson, past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time Farmington.
Thank you for joining us, Nick. Juan Sepulveda.
Hello, everyone. Juan Sepulveda from Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
All right, thank you, Juan. Jason Richards.
Hey, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for coming out to watch us. My name is Jason Richards, as John mentioned, and I am still the junior warden of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
All right. Thank you, Jason. And our special guest for tonight, Adam T. Osman. Will you introduce yourself and which lodge and Grand Lodge you're affiliated under?
Yes, my name is Adam T. Osman. I am a past master of Juniata Lodge number 282 in Hollidaysburg, and that's in the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. You have a unique experience which will contribute to tonight's episode. Moving into Masonic news, we've had a lot since our last episode. In fact, for those who are keeping track, since last time and this time we had April Fool's Day, April 1st, and boy was it a good one. For those who have been keeping tabs on the interwebs, the infamous Tom Acousti, who's joined us once before, has shared with his blog, The Tao of Masonry, an article that he wrote regarding the Lodge Network. Now, why was this one so controversial, guys?
Because it basically outed a lodge in Connecticut as being a complete virtual lodge to the point where they even confer degrees either online or through Netflix-style DVD shipping.
Internet degrees?
Yeah, and the best part about it was that the degrees portrayed on video were better quality than the degrees the candidates would get in lodge anyway, especially if they have surround sound stereo systems at home.
Nice.
They would get the best ritualists from anywhere in the country to be the ones performing the degree, so it guaranteed that you have the absolute best viewing experience.
The best.
They probably even had like costumes, and I mean, we're talking like Michael Bay type of stuff here.
Michael Bay Internet Masonry. So if you want to check out the website for this Internet Lodge, it's network502.wordpress.com. They spared no expense.
Never mind the fact. Can we just explain like how crappy this internet page is, and anybody who's online at all would like realize, okay, you have a lodge that's completely on the internet, and they have like this GeoCities knockoff of a website. I mean, that would have I would have called BS right there.
That's what was killer. It was killer. It was a total troll article, right? Because everybody saw it and they read like the first few paragraphs, never clicked on any of the links, and then we're leaving comments all over social media and Facebook, and it was like, harumph, harumph, harumph. You know, I was like, did you guys just click below? You'll see it's a joke.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like that time when he reported that the Grand Lodge of Rhode Island and the Grand Lodge of Connecticut had decided to merge. There were actually people calling, saying, "Did this actually happen?" And you still, to this day, you find out people are like posting on Facebook.
Yep.
Man, I'm so glad that Rhode Island and Connecticut figured out that they needed to save some money.
Tom is the king of the Masonic hoax.
Well, remember last year we had him on right after April Fool's Day, so we actually talked a little bit about his joke last year, which was lodge, like commercial sponsorships of lodge. It's like tonight's lodge meeting brought to you by McDonald's.
Yeah. And so, Tom, my hat's off to you, sir. That's a good one. Yes,
Now,
it
did
was a
you
joke.
guys-
Yes, it did get a lot of people spun up. And I got to say, I think the beauty of it is that it was realistic enough that it probably could happen. That's why people didn't get the joke at first.
You know, but
Did
I
you
want
guys,
to give. I'm
oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you guys click on your Grand Lodge's page that he had on there, the GeoCities version?
Yeah,
It was
brilliant.
beautiful.
I think it
I just
improved
like-
some Grand Lodge pages.
I liked that Tom actually addressed literal issues in a joking way. So if you were a little bit hip to the fact that it was a joke, you there was a little bit of like stabbing and knife twisting in there.
Nice. All right, anything else we want to add about the joke? It's purely a joke. It's not happening yet.
Tom, we
Yeah.
love you. You're the man.
If it does, they're gonna come to Tom to organize it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You put a lot of thought into this. There's the Grand Lodge of Minnesota's GeoCity. This is just great. The dancing baby makes it. It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. It's beautiful.
All right, moving on to our next topic is an article that Nick found and shared on his website. What's that website, Nick?
That would be millennialfreemason.com.
.com. And so in this month's Knights Templar magazine, for those Knights Templars and for those who don't get a copy mailed to their house, you can also check it on his website. He shared a link to an article written by John Palmer, I believe.
Yep, the managing editor of the Knights Templar magazine, Sir Knight John Palmer. Yep.
And it was actually very thought-provoking. And in summary, it discusses some of the new movements coming in the philosophical movements and the differences in the 21st century of Masonry. His classifications were really kind of interesting. They basically boiled down to status quo, neo-moderns, and neo-ancients. And so it's very thought-provoking of similarities of what was going on, during the split of the Grand Lodge, and how we see things very similarly split today with, your traditional observance movement and, some of your solemnity of the degrees and that kind of thing. Anything we want to add to that?
Well, it's kind of interesting to me to see the list of who he put in moderns, I'm not sure what he postmodern, neo-moderns. I wanted to call them postmoderns because it just sounded so much cooler, but neo-moderns and then the neo-ancients, and it was really interesting to see that, he seemed to really appreciate what the MRF, the Masonic Restoration Foundation, and the traditional observance movement was doing, but then there was this third path of status quo, and that made up the majority, like the vast majority, like in his estimation 90% or something like that. And it was just kind of interesting to see,
including
how he was categorized.
99% of all past masters.
Just maintain the status quo.
Hurrah.
Hey, we're told to do that. That's part of the secret. Oh wait, I just told the secret degree.
You destroyed it.
You shall.
Was that degree 98 or 99?
360.
That's a 60 degree.
Nice.
Wait, I just shown the signals. I've just shown the symbols too.
Oh, jeez.
Check it out on the YouTube page.
The show's live. We can't take it back.
Oh, jeez.
Nope. But yeah, and so I just thought it was kind of funny if you take a look at how they divide up the two groups. It's very fascinating to see who's in which camp.
Do you agree with it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And do you think it's a fair categorization of 21st century Masons?
I do. Yeah, actually, I thought he was very insightful on that. There's these three different branches that are going on, and I think it was kind of interesting that the Scottish Rite was placed in the neo-moderns, postmoderns, neo-moderns, and the idea was keep it simple, keep it fast. These guys are bored, so it's kind of how do we appease these two different styles of learning? And I thought it was a very insightful article, so you should check it out.
Excellent. Anybody else read the article? Apparently no one goes to Nick's blog. All right.
Wow. Thanks, guys.
I spend my time reading quality work like the Midnight Freemasons.
Oh,
Wow.
Free plug.
burn.
I would give you $5.
Hold on.
Branding.
This
The-
thing on my back. What the?
Get that knife out of your back, Nick.
I think it was an ice pick.
Et tu, Brute?
This isn't the York Right show. Moving on.
The last thing I'll add is, given the topic of tonight's show, that it's worth mentioning that the Grand Lodge of Virginia will be having a one-day conferral on August 29th of 2015. And we do have a link below on the website, theMasonicRoundtable.com, to get more details on how that's going to operate and where to find the local closest area to have that done.
You were going to say locust.
Locust. It's
Like it
closest and local. All right, let's move into our next topic, which is MMQOT. Nick, what is MMQOT?
Certainly, John. The MMQOT. See, honestly, I can't
Can't
even
do
say
the
it.
acronyms, man.
Oh man,
you work for
honestly,
the government.
I work for the government. I should know how to do this stuff, but I don't. I'm bad. Anyway,
LOL.
Masonic Monday question on Tuesday. It is a question that I send out weekly to a listserv, and if you'd like to be a part of that, you can just send an email to masonicmonday@gmail.com, and I will add you to the list. But I also like to do it on this show because I know a lot of our listeners are very into the educational side of Freemasonry. So with that being said, I would like to first give you the answer and our list of winners, and yes, you are all winners to me, for the week of March 30th, 2015. I'll call out the winners first, and then I'll give the question and answer. Our winners are Justin Miller of Sacramento Lodge, number 24 of the Grand Lodge of New Mexico. Christopher Croteau of Dorchester Lodge, number 1 of the Grand Lodge of Vermont. Lou Bedford of Palestine Lodge, number 158 of the Grand Lodge of Ohio. And Jonathan Primo of Lincoln Park Ionic Lodge, number 539, Grand Lodge of Michigan. And last week's question concerned an Italian war hero who attempted to combine an entire rite of Freemasonry, and that would be Giuseppe Garibaldi, who was instrumental in forming the modern country of Italy. And he also worked to combine the rite of Memphis and the rite of Mizram, starting that work in 1881. Sadly, he died in 1882, 7 years before the planned merger date of 1889. I'm also giving credit, because there were some really good answers, to those that pointed out that he also intervened in competing claims of two Scottish Rite councils, one in Palermo and the other in Naples. So congratulations, guys. Come on down, and I will give you your prize. Oh, you're not here. That's okay. Sorry.
Everyone's a winner, according to you.
Well, you know what? I would have given them a hug. That was their prize.
Oh.
Because I love you all, guys.
I prefer a virtual high five.
Or a fist bump, Anyway, I'm not very cool. So, with that, wow, that really drained our energy.
So that happened.
Let's pep ourselves up with the Masonic Monday question for the week of April 6th, 2015. Let's talk credentials. Many American Masons may never encounter a Master Mason certificate, but in much of the world, a Master Mason certificate is the proof used by a traveling brother when he visits a lodge. So your question, What is the earliest surviving Premier Grand Lodge Master Mason certificate? What year is it from? The bonus question is, what was the special term used by the ancient Grand Lodge for their certificates during that same period? When you have your answer, send it to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name, lodge number, and the hashtag TMR, MMQ, MMQ, TMR, or any kind of letters you love. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you very much, Nick.
What happens if they post it to the Facebook page?
Ooh, if you do post it to the Facebook page. Well, if you post it to the Facebook page...
Dr. stays dead.
Yeah, that's true. That would happen.
Dr.
And also,
stays
and if you've ever seen the show Gummy Bears, which I loved as a kid,
Yes.
they will no longer be able to drink that special gummy bear juice that they use. Can't even remember what it was called, but it was great. And they will never be able to bounce again. Do not take away their ability to bounce. Do not post the answer on Facebook.
Thank you very much, Nick. Your questions are always enlightening. Alrighty, moving on to our topic for tonight. One-day conferrals. All right, this is a very controversial topic, and we thought we'd bring in an expert. Let me reintroduce Adam T. Osman and ask him very plainly, what is a one-day conferral?
Well, one-day conferrals are when you confer all 3 degrees of your Blue Lodge Freemasonry in one day, and there are variations of that from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and even some lodges do them differently within their own jurisdictions. But any way you call it, some people call it Blue Lightning, some people call it one-day class, one-day conferral. All 3 degrees of your Blue Lodge in one day.
And you were a one-day conferral, correct?
Yes, October 2nd, 2004.
All 3 degrees, awesome. Why would you have such a system when we already have a system of 3 separate degrees and the progression that goes with that?
As a non-Mason, I wondered the same thing. To your typical guy on the street, the offer of, hey, you could get this all done in one day, or you could drag it out over 3 months. Now, that's the way some people look at it. I think that on the flip side, a good mentor wouldn't put it that way, or a good, if you were trying to interest your man in the lodge, I think that it could be put a different way. But sometimes it's just easier to say, hey, we have this one-day class coming up. You can get all 3 degrees in one day. If you don't do it that way, the traditional way takes about 3 months. And I think a lot of guys just look at that basic set of information and say, okay, I'm good with that.
Okay, before we go any further...
I can't speak for everybody, though. I mean, and also, I'm not an expert on the one-day classes. I should clarify that.
You've been through it. You're more of an expert than I am. I will say, just a quick round robin here. Which jurisdictions, since we have multiple jurisdictions covered here, have had or do have one-day classes? Now, Virginia does, as you heard. There was actually one coming up this August. Adam, you are under the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania, correct?
Yes.
So we've got those 2 covered. How about Robert? Anything in your jurisdiction?
Yes, sir. In Illinois, they are referred to as, Brother Adam said, a Blue Lightning one-day class. We haven't had one in a little while, but they do happen in Illinois, and we also do. We can do them at lodges, at individual lodges, providing the proper stuff is done.
Cool.
Oh,
Nick?
interesting.
Sure. Minnesota does a one-day to Masonry. We do it about once or twice a year. And full disclosure, and you can all start throwing stuff at me now. Luckily, it's a computer. I do, in fact, work in the degree teams for the one-day conferrals.
Well, might as well start with the best, right? As Robert stabs the screen.
Did you also hear the kids start crying in the background? I thought that was particularly appropriate.
I even make children weep. It's sad.
As far as I know, 2009 was the last year that they did one-day conferrals in Florida. The subsequent grandmasters that we've had haven't looked at one-day conferrals very favorably. And I think it stems from the fact that it had been extended to people that didn't necessarily need them. There's a focus here, and the common understanding is that if it's a serviceman that has to go to training, has to go to a different country, and that's going to make it impossible for him to progress through the degrees, then that particular courtesy was extended to them. But to many regular people that could have gone through the tedious and long drawn out way of becoming a master mason, they were doing it too. So
Okay. I will add that Virginia does it every couple of years. It depends on the Grand Master, but it is usually not every year or every other year. It's usually kind of a every 3 years or so kind of deal.
Yeah, the last one we had was actually 2012, because I was going through the petition process at that point and was actually debating between doing the one-day conferral and doing the full-on catechism. And I ended up doing the full-on catechism, but then one of my good friends, who's now our worshipful master, ended up doing the one-day class, and then I got it strung out so long that he was made Master Mason in August, and I had to wait until March of the next year to get raised.
Wow.
All right, so let's move into the benefits. What are the pros of doing such an event? I'll open it up to anybody.
Well, I think that one of the pros for me right off the bat was that because I didn't understand exactly what the Masons were, I could go down and take care of this all in one day. And I know that that's not the way you look at Masonry, but I'm talking as a general Joe off the street with very little Masonic background outside of the interview and petitioning process, very little Masonic background. So there's a convenience factor. They always cite busy work lives. A lot of people are working later evenings, what have you. So there is a convenience factor with the one-day class if all you're concerned about is becoming a Mason.
Any other benefits?
Well, I think also there's... Oh, go ahead, Adam.
I think that it's hard to deny the fact that when you get a mass amount of men in one place, it does have a monetary side of it that comes with it, and I think that can sometimes be a shot in the arm for some struggling lodges, or even a shot in the arm for some grand lodges. And I can't say that that's a motive behind one-day conferrals, but I think it is something that goes with them.
Well, and there's also a lot of people that have jobs that require them to travel quite often, and so it's one of those that sadly, for whatever reason, a lot of grand lodges will put on a time between that you have to finish your Master Mason's work, from start to finish within a year, and then you have to get like a 3 month, and then at some point you have to re-vote on the petition. So I think, in some very limited circumstances, somebody who has a job that they're traveling a lot may benefit from having a one-day conferral, only because then, the whole, let's say they're out of the country again for, on a tour or something like that, and they can't come back. It's one of those that at least now they can become a Master Mason, and they can travel, and they can visit, and they're allowed all the different benefits that you would have as Master Mason. So
Juan, have you thought of any other benefits that might come with that? Doing a one-day, and you're muted, so check your mic.
I was trying to find an article that I was reading earlier from a Grand Lodge in which they were showing the whole presentation started, congratulations, from the year 2000 to the year 2001, we had an increment of entered apprentices being initiated of 12% compared to the previous year. And it started like with that kind of excitement, but then it went to say of the 600, about 10% of them actually went all the way through to become Master Masons. And So the benefit that they have found was, or the benefit that they perceived from providing a one-day class was that you made sure that all of these people that from the get-go were committed to join Masonry were going to have an opportunity to be Master Masons at the end and perhaps be more involved in the meetings because it felt like they were being neglected in the process of transitioning from an intern apprentice to fellow craft and subsequently to Master Mason.
Well, and one of the other benefits I was thinking about just now is the work that you're going to get at a one-day conferral versus at a lodge that will be your home lodge is usually but not always far superior than what you're going to see. And it's usually because the people that are in the one-day conferrals are kind of like the all-star team, and so most of them, I mean, these guys are handpicked, which makes me sound like I'm even more awesome than I actually am.
Nick Johnson will be there.
But just throw your roses to me, it's okay. I love all of you. The little people. I mean the people. But seriously, it's one of those that the degree work that you get usually is superior. I mean, it's really well done. It's usually practiced at least, I think we do at least 3 practices, something like two or 3. Plus, everybody's, you've got custodians, multiple. So that's what we call the ritual, people who hold the ritual. They're usually sitting on you, making sure that you're pretty much letter perfect. You're pretty much giving the delivery exactly as it's intended. And the pronunciations are all correct. So, that's the other benefit that you're going to get is that the work that you're going to see is pretty much the best work out there. But at the same time, just like what I said, that's the downside also is that you're seeing the work, you're not necessarily experiencing the work.
Well, with all these positives, what are some of the negatives? I'm sure there can't be hardly any negatives to this, right?
Well, if you look at it from a ritual standpoint, I mean, if you're doing something like learning a catechism in between each degree, that is, ritual that mirrors very closely the ritual of the degrees, which you need to know if you're going to take an officer position. So if you just kind of breeze through that and then at some point you want to go and start taking an officer position and start moving your way up to the east, then you're going to have to relearn all of that stuff that you would have had to learn in the first place. And that's one thing that I'm very thankful for having gone through the traditional method, is that, as junior warden in the lodge, I'm working toward learning all the ritual that I need to know for my year in the East. And I've only had to learn probably, 10 to 15% more than I learned just going through the degrees.
And you would have been denied that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Adam, what were you going to say?
I think that one of the things that Nick had said about being, excellent degree work, the degree work is usually superior, but the negative would be that it's not personal. You could have the greatest degree team in the world, but if you are, in some cases, shoulder to shoulder with 400 guys, like in my case, and I know there's some smaller ones, but there's some very large conferrals. Have you ever sat in the back of a room and lost track of what's going on and kind of wondered and drifted, and by the 3rd degree of that day, think about how long your degrees are anyway. The most superior degree team, I think, would struggle to keep everybody's attention that long. So obviously your degree experience is a negative. You're joining the Masons and you're becoming a dues-paying Mason, but by far your ritual experience has been lessened.
Mm-hmm. Robert, what other negatives can you think of?
It's just interesting to me listening to the pros and the cons, and I'm really just taking it all in. One of the things that stuck out was, of course, Nick's a suggestion of experiencing versus just watching. And what we see in the Blue Lodge with that is what Adam somewhat alluded to earlier. The regular guy coming off the street, does he go for it because he just doesn't know better? Do they ever? I mean, I don't know. Like
That's why I went for it.
I mean, if you had a choice to go back, would you say, no, I wouldn't do that?
Well, I think yeah, that's absolutely yes. If I understood what I know now, yes, I would do the traditional way, but I didn't. I did the one-day class, and the only thing that I can do out of my experience, and I'll tell you, as far as a one-day class goes, ours went off, I think, as near perfect as it could have. So the men that put it together, I can't fault them. They did their work exactly the way they were supposed to. I think there is occasionally the mentor area falls apart. So you have all these new guys coming in, and regardless of how great that system is designed, and some people can debate that, without mentoring, your one-day class is, just as good as your mentors.
Right. So I guess, what I'm looking at is, do you think that there are one-day class Masons out there who got the one-day class, became active, look at it and go, man, and then hold a resentment because they got a one-day class and nobody told them that it was going to be different? I mean, do you think there's a resentment that exists there? Because there certainly is. There is a resentment, and we see it all the time. Excuse me.
Actually, I'll actually add to Robert's question. Is there a stigma associated that, oh, you're one of the one days?
Right, and that's what
I'll tell you right now, there is. You'll hear people say there isn't, but there absolutely is. Robert, to answer your question, I got hung up on stigma there for a second. The
resentment between
the resentment. I even mentioned it when I was writing. I didn't resent my experience, but what had happened is when I got time to digest what I went through. Now, keep in mind, I'm going from entered apprentice to fellowcraft to master mason. I also did the Scottish Rite and the Shrine all on the same day.
Holy smokes!
And
how are you still alive?
In my head, while they're all separate organizations, I at the time didn't understand how separate. I'm thinking the Masons are the Masons are the Masons, and these guys wear funny hats and they help children, and these guys over here have the dyslexic centers, and they're all the Masons, and these guys help these guys, and these guys like these guys. And have you ever heard anybody say bad stuff about the Shrine, or have you ever heard any Shriners say bad stuff about Blue Lodge? And you suddenly get it. Like when I digested what was going on, I have 3 separate meetings. Well, Blue Lodge meets the rehearsal meeting, then they meet for conferring degrees, and then there's School of Instruction, if you want to make that, and then there's Scottish, right? Don't forget that, and then there's the pancake breakfast that everybody has. Do you want to volunteer for that? And I think that after seeing the dues payments come in and realize what I had done, and that's on me. I didn't do the proper research, but on the other side, I kind of felt like a little bit overwhelmed, and not like anybody set me up, or not like there was anything malicious. I just kind of felt like, whoa, what did I get myself into? And I'm not really understanding any of it.
So let's talk about the stigma too while you're on that. Is there a stigma?
That's kind of what I was going to lead into, saying that there's that resentment that goes the other way, because we've certainly seen it, and I know, we talked a little bit before the show, Adam, the term McMason, right? We've all heard that.
Yes.
Thousands served.
That term gets tossed around. I think what bothers me most are the guys that anytime you bring up the one-day class discussion, they're so adamant and they're so negative, and they're so quick to say about how crappy that Mason's going to be, or how that Mason, or you can't learn the degrees, and you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do this. But those same guys complaining are usually not the ones signing up to help further a different agenda. If you don't want to see the one-day class, then let's contact the district deputy and say, hey, maybe we should revisit this. Or, we're all on the level. You have just as much right to voice your opinion about what you see and as anybody. The one-day classes exist. I'm part of it, and I took an oath that I would help aid and assist my Grand Lodge. So if I'm called upon, while I don't necessarily, agree with the practice as it's used, I'm going to help aid and assist my Grand Lodge to the best of my ability. But to call me a McMason and, or not call me, that term McMason does sort of seem like, well, that guy's only part of the Mason we are, because we went to 2 extra days.
Well, and it's even worse. It's like these guys assume that because they are capable of parroting information back, even though most people that do the memory work for the catechism don't know what they're saying. Trust me. I know they don't know. They just are spewing back the words that they're meant to put in there.
I can repeat words better than you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's all it is. It's parroting. So, I mean, the difference in terms of, I did it longer than you did.
And that is, I guess, the stigma goes along with it. That is one of my frustrations, is the thought that a one-day class Mason is somehow lesser Mason by his choosing. I mean, I got a lesser experience. I'll give you that one. But I'll put my dedication to the craft up against anybody any day.
Yep.
That's a very good point, because one thing that we cannot ignore is the fact that you will have, and I have personally met them, one-day class Masons who have excelled to such a degree that puts to shame some of the other brothers that have gone down the traditional route. As a matter of fact, I have seen brothers take the commitment to Masonry. Even though they were part of a one-day class, they took their commitment further than some of the brothers that actually made it to the East.
I know a ton of guys like that.
Yeah.
We've got.
I do too. I mean, that's.
So Adam is a one-day Mason. Tremendous gift back to the fraternity. You paid your dues. Essentially, you're a past master. You paid your duty to the lodge. You have guys like Chris Hodap. I'm pretty sure Chris Hodap was a one-day Mason, was he not?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think he was. If Chris, you're listening, sorry if either way. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but I think you told me you were.
So Adam, it sounds like. Go ahead, Jason.
Can I talk, please? I promise I'll be good. No, I mean this brings it all back to something that I think is so crucial for a lodge to do for any new brother, regardless of whether or not he's a one-day conferral or a traditional method brother, and that's mentorship. I mean, you have to have good, solid mentorship from the members of your lodge, regardless of whether or not they're teaching you the catechism or teaching you ritual after you've gone through those 3 degrees in one day. And I think that's really where you see the success and or distancing of new brothers, regardless of whether or not they're one-day conferrals or traditional Masons.
That's a good point, and I think Adam, it really sounds like from being a past master has really earned Freemasonry, and there really someone should write a book about it, possibly called "Earning Freemasonry," one-day class redemption. So, in fact, our very own Adam T. Osman did write a book on the topic, and for those who haven't read it, it's a good read. It hits right to his personal experience, and why don't you talk a little bit about that? What inspired you to write the book?
It's linked in our show notes.
Yeah.
Well, the book basically came about because coming through the chairs and learning the ritual and learning about the lodge, you eventually realize what you missed. And I'm not saying what you missed because I was a one-day Mason. I'm saying what I missed just because Masonry, you don't learn everything right away. You need to take it upon yourself to learn a little bit more. That doesn't happen once a month. That's reading. That's watching you guys. That's listening to you guys.
That's the rest of your life.
And the more I learned, the more I thought, well, this is there's something to this whole Masonry thing, and I'm getting more involved. But the whole time I was going, you would hear things about the one-day class, or you would hear about the bads, the statistics of who's dropping out. My lodge has always had very successful one-day class candidates. I mean, I think several past masters before me were one-day candidates, or one-day class Masons. I started blogging shortly after I joined the Pennsylvania Academy of Masonic Knowledge, just because it had opened my eyes to a whole another side of the fraternity and got me really interested. And a lot of the stuff that I wrote, I didn't feel comfortable. It just scattered thoughts. And someone said, well, you should maybe compile that, and it might make for an interesting read because people are interested in the one-day classes. Hindsight, while it is about the one-day class in my experience, overall it is earning Freemasonry. And as a past master and as I studied the craft, I saw areas where I think that everybody in general, regardless of how you became a Mason, could start at square one and earn Freemasonry. It's broken down into, if you're a new Mason, well, there's a chapter for you. If you're an officer, there's a chapter for you. If you're a past master, past grand master, you know, no matter what stage of life you are, it's my opinion that you still need to earn Freemasonry, and you got to keep doing that for the rest of your life. If I'm an example of what a one-day class Mason can accomplish, that makes me feel good. But really, it's how I some of my suggestions and some of my thoughts, which, as one guy put it online, your mileage may vary. But
hey, so just to
it
let
all came together.
The record shows statistically 100% of all one-day Masons on this show have become past masters. Just saying.
That's true.
Statistic.
Yeah, okay, so like my lodge, right? We ran the report just a few weeks back. I have 20 unfinished entered apprentices. That's pretty crazy for me.
Wow.
And so that's another statistic. 100% of one-day class Masons become Master Masons.
So, Robert, you had a question about his book, though.
I do. You know, so Adam, if you guys you've had time now. You went through the one-day class. You became a Master Mason. You did you're a past master. You wrote a book. You had an opinion in the book. The book has been out for a little while now. Has your opinion about a one-day class changed after hearing people's feedback about your book? Has it, altered the way you see it? How do you feel about it before you wrote the book, and how you feel about it now?
Well, my opinion really hasn't changed on the class, or on the from where it was. I am a one-day class Mason. I've stated that I don't necessarily agree with that practice, but it does exist. As long as it exists, I think it's our job, my job, your job, to make the best of it. Where I've evolved is definitely, as a one-day class approaches, if I am talking to anybody or a potential candidate or any family members, I do get a little bit more preachy about the benefits of traditional versus one-day class. And you will have some people that will give you every reason of why they can, maybe they're hesitant. You'd make a great Mason, but they're like, well, I'm a truck driver. I can only do it one night a week. And they'll give you reasons of why they might want the one-day class. And that's their decision ultimately, but it's my job to say, okay, but this is why I think you should really consider the traditional route. But like I said before, I also believe that no matter how you became a Mason, you have the same ability to earn it back. Do I wish that one-day Mason, or, classes didn't exist? I can't say that, because I think that there are some instances that they are completely appropriate. One, when you were talking about military servicemen, and it's hard for me to say something that our Grand Lodge is doing is not appropriate, because it exists, and I'm an example of how it was a success. I've never seen statistics of one-day class Masons versus traditionally made Masons, who stays in longer, who drops out. I can speak from my opinion, or my experience.
Juan?
Well, quickly, I think that if the Grand Lodges and the members of the Grand Lodge got together and felt, after discussing it for however long it was, that it was something that was necessary, perhaps there are pros and cons, like John alluded at the beginning. But one thing I wanted to add is about the enhancing the experience of people. There is a marked difference between witnessing something happening and being a part of it. You can see the exact same thing from a distance or be a part of it, and the experience is going to be completely different. And in the research that I have been doing about rituals and habits and behavior, I came across a paper published in the Association of Psychological Sciences where several professors from Harvard Business School and the University of Minnesota did experiments to see, is there some validity to this? Is going through a ritual going to enhance the experience? And the findings of the report were that, number one, there was a marked difference in the perceived value of the experience from the people that actually performed a ritual before consuming something. That was one thing. The other thing, the delay between the beginning promise of what you will attain at the end and the actual, reaching the finish line, that delay also has a value. So for a traditional Mason that goes to the entered apprentice degree and has to wait a month and then go to a second one, that anticipation also builds on the perceived value that he's going to get from the entire experience. So those are things to consider. If you have to go through a one-day class, do so only if you have to. If you have the alternative to go through the traditional route and be immersed in the experience and the rituals, go that route. That's my advice.
A candidate. Yeah, I think that initiatic experience, which is also something that Joseph Vanderstelt had mentioned on Facebook, I think it's so incredibly helpful, and it just adds to that bond that you get with your brothers of having gone through that same initiatic experience. It's something that's just out of this world.
Devil's advocate. Okay, I know we're talking about Blue Lodge, right? But we're talking about watching only. Now, the Scottish Rite, for instance, is all watching. And in fact, in the Northern Masonic jurisdiction, we have certain degrees on video. So what is the difference if you're watching it on a video,
April Fools,
on a stage? If you're going to watch it, even if it's a one-day class, why can't there just be a video? If you're going to watch it. I mean, if there's a difference.
Wow.
If given an option, I would go through the Scottish Rite 1 degree at a time.
Yeah,
Amen.
Yep.
Like you can do in Minneapolis.
Let's all move there.
Or Europe.
The weather is beautiful.
Yeah, well, most of the time.
But it makes up a good point. Why is Scottish Rite any different? They get this, okay, so you're doing it in 2 days. It's not a 1 day.
It's a 2 day.
Weekends here in Virginia, right?
Thank you.
And let's talk about how much information you're trying to process. Give me a break.
Yeah, and it's more than 3 degrees. That's how I'll put it.
Drink from the
And
fire
I think
hose.
that is a great point to make. And regardless of how you become a Mason, you still have work to do.
Yep. Always. It never stops, like John said, the rest of your life.
All
The
right.
only difference I see is that you're given the title, you're given the ribbon before you actually apply all this wisdom to yourself. So some people might not have the inclination to work as hard to attain that level because they already got the ribbon.
Pearls
Yeah.
before
They'll
swine.
take
All
that.
right, Jason, what else do they say on social media?
Well, we've got a note from Gerald Eckerd who said, he actually met a brother who moved to Texas for work, and he actually mentioned to Gerald that he had done the one-day conferral, and Gerald was a little puzzled because he had just asked him some of the basic questions about the degrees after verifying that he was in fact a dues card carrying Mason, and he couldn't recount any of it.
Does that go back to
And
management, Jason?
I really think it does. In this brother's case, maybe it was more of the idea that he went through those 3 degrees and immediately had to move. so there was a little bit of that plus jurisdictional differences. But I really think, again, this goes back, like you were saying, to the idea of mentorship as being crucial, especially when you have these big one-day classes.
Well, that's the thing. If you go to any lodge that in Minnesota, we have what's called a rusty nail, and it's essentially inviting all these guys who joined the lodge that haven't been in a lodge forever. I can tell you the reason we have to do programs like that is because these guys, some of them don't even remember any of the signs or anything like that. So you're essentially having to reteach them everything. So it's really not that shocking to me that somebody who went through a one day, or if he hadn't been in lodge for a while, he's going to forget everything. So it's true. It's all about mentorship. It's not. I don't think it's. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
And you would have that, had you gone through the 3 degrees or not. If you're away from lodge for work or whatever reason for a really long time and you come back, you're going to forget stuff.
Yep.
And it's all about, reintegrating into that, and getting a little bit of mentorship on the side, and just not being afraid to come back to lodge, even if you think that you don't know anything. Interestingly enough, our friend Donnie Dillon was actually a one-day conferral as well, and he mentioned that his one conferral degree was very, very well done. It was punctuated with music, further explanations of the degrees, and even Masonic poetry that all helped add to the experience. So I think that's really interesting in the sense that that's kind of kind of an injection of that Masonic education that you would be getting between the degrees. But it's got to be such a fire hose, though.
So
I'd be brain dead for a week.
I will say, if you do check out the link below on the MasonicRoundtable.com and our episode 60 link, that I did link to the Grand Lodge of Virginia's edict on how they're going to handle it, and they spent a lot of time in making sure that everything is done very efficiently. That you do have a mentor with every single candidate, so there are lots of little things added in there to make sure that as it's done, that even afterwards there is a period of instruction to make sure that they understand all of the things that go along with that. So if you're going to do it, make sure that there are these things in place afterwards to ensure knowledge transfer and mentorship.
Yeah. Well, and I should say, it's kind of funny. I've been champion Mr. Rah-rah about one days, but the one thing that always gives me pause on one days, and I've learned this even more so through my years in New York, right, is that, and I don't know if it's maybe just my impression of it, but I've noticed that guys that go, if you're a lodge or chapter or counselor or commander and you're pushing these guys through a one day, most of those guys don't come back. And essentially it creates this vicious cycle of the Masonic body not really knowing how to do the work anymore because they've been doing one days for so long, they've forgotten how to do it. And you've also got guys that are essentially pushed through, they see all the degrees, and they never make it back to whatever Masonic body they're in.
So you bring up a good point that we live in a time now where we have access to a lot of information all at once. Grand Lodges consolidate a lot of this stuff, and it's easy to pull through the data. It would be beneficial, even across jurisdictions, to really look at the retention rates of one-day conferrals versus traditional conferrals, and really do thorough data analysis on this. I mean, it's the engineer in me speaking. I'm sorry, but all we have until now is really anecdotal, and you can argue that there's some analysis being done, but even then that's at the sovereign Grand Lodge level. So we really need to look. Maybe that's something that the Masonic Services Association could do. Jason, what else do we have?
Well, actually, our comments about Scottish Rite degrees and how a lot of us think they should be conferred one at a time is spurring a lot of discussion as well. And I'll say that's one of the reasons why I haven't joined the Scottish Rite. I really don't have any interest in getting a fire hose of, 28 degrees, 29 degrees over the course of 2 weekends or 1 weekend. It just, if I could go, over the course of 6 months and just be able to sit and digest each degree and have that initiatic experience or something similar with each degree, I think I'd get a lot more out of it. Now, I know the Scottish Rite has things like the Master Craftsman program, which is designed to kind of, put the onus of self-study back on the Scottish Rite Mason. But I love that initiatic experience, and I really think it's just one of the more amazing parts of Freemasonry.
Okay.
Well, and actually, we just received a message as well that apparently Albert Pike was also against the mass conferral of Scottish Rite degrees. So Albert Pike is judging you right now.
Rolling in his grave.
He did write them all, so and he spared no commas.
Commas are like tears.
So interestingly enough, we'll do one more, and this is from Eric Tamez. He said, he thought actually the Grand Lodge of New York did one-day conferrals, but all of their conferral candidates still actually had to learn and turn in their work, which I think is interesting as well. It's kind of where you still have to show a little bit of proficiency after your one-day conferral in order to get your dues card and be kind of blessed as a full-fledged Mason. What do you all think about that?
So I may be wrong, and I probably am. I was under the impression that in Illinois, regardless, whether you go through 3 meetings or 1 meeting, you at least have to return your first degree proficiency and a second degree proficiency in order to receive your third degree. And in some lodges, you return your third degree proficiency in order to hold an elected office, such as my lodge. With the one-day conferrals of the Blue Lightnings, I was under the impression that they had up to 6 months to return a proficiency on the first and second degrees. I think. But I remember hearing it somewhere, and I really wish I knew for sure, guys.
So I'll add that if you look at the Grand Lodge of Virginia instructions in our show notes, they have a similar thing that if the one-way class is August 29th, by October 31st, the one-dayers should return some sort of proficiency. It doesn't say what happens if they don't.
Probably nothing. I mean, you've already
seen all the light, right?
You can't unring the bell.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a question for you, Robert. Now, in Illinois, Blue Lightning, is that the official Grand Lodge vernacular?
It is.
Okay.
Wow.
I love it.
Beautiful
It's
car.
so illustrative.
It's a beautiful 1957. It just.
It's as good as To Be One, Ask One, isn't it?
Man.
I think it's better, actually. It's got more of a kick.
Honestly, the first couple times that I heard Blue Lightning, I thought it was sort of like a McMason type thing. I thought it was someone throwing an elbow.
No, it is not. Absolutely not. It is what every lodge refers to it here in Illinois. It's a Blue Lightning, one-day class.
It sounds like a really good moonshine. That's all I'll say.
No, it sounds like something out of Zoolander.
All right, so let's take this time now. We've reached about the hour mark, so let's start going around and say our final thoughts and shameless plugs. And I will start with Robert Johnson.
I've got so many. Thanks for watching the program. It's been truly awesome to hear the opinions, the social media comments, having Adam on the show. Invaluable. I had heard a lot about one-day classes because for the longest time I had such a problem with them. And I mean, I was probably one of the guys who I probably harbored some sort of resentment. That's where it came from. It was resentment on my part that you got something in a day that took me forever. It seemed like it did. And I no longer feel that way at all. I really feel like if you're a one-day Mason, there's nothing that separates us other than you did do it in a day. maybe, however that person feels about it, that's the way they feel about it. That's not my issue, and it should be that person's issue. But it doesn't matter because, like one of my best friends in the world, Brother Brian Shimian, Midnight Freemason contributor, he is a one-day Mason also, and is one of the best Masons I know. It really depends on how that person decides to take the teachings of Masonry and apply it to their lives. Some guys are doctors and they want to take that and just run with it and never come back. And they're a Mason and they pay their dues every year. Some guys show up every meeting. So that's it. If you like Masonic Podcast, check out Whence Came You. It's every Sunday night at 9:30. And check out the Midnight Freemasons, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I have a good post going up tomorrow if you're interested.
All right. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, guys.
Nick Johnson.
I'm torn because I'm one of those that I'm actually involved in the conferral, and so I am the enemy for all those who don't like them.
We have met the enemy, and he is us.
He is Nick. And so anyway, it's one of those that I'm a hypocrite, and I should say that right now. When I was going through the York Rite, I made a very concerted effort to force the chapter council and commandery that I joined to give me the degrees in the slow version. They wanted to push the one day, and I said no, thank you. And then they tried again, and I said no, thank you. A third time. No, thank you. And so I'm a hypocrite because I'm also in the degree teams for those same one days. So it's one of those that I think the only real advice I can give is don't treat the Mason. If you got a problem with the institutional device that is being used, don't blame the guys going through it because most of the time they don't know what's going on, and sometimes maybe they have a good reason to do it. So just take your anger, divert it away from those poor guys over there, aim for the ones that have the shiny things here, and tell them that you don't like it. They have the ones with the shiny things. That's why they have them there. They're like beacons. So, millennialfreemason.com. Thanks, John.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Juan Sepulveda.
I've met brothers that are exceptional, and they went through a one-day conferral. Some of them have struggled with the fact that they have to endure the scorn from other people who don't necessarily love the concept, but yet they make it their mission to earn Freemasonry. They make it their mission to really value the gift they've been given. And we had the pleasure of meeting Adam in Pennsylvania and listen to his speech, which, by the way, if your jurisdiction is torn between whether having one-day conferrals or not, this man right here is a great man that can come and give a great presentation about it. And the problem is not the people. The problem is not the man that goes to the one-day conferral. If it falls off of the bandwagon, it's our problem. We didn't reach out to them. We didn't offer them the support necessary to become the best version of themselves possible. So I encourage you to, if you are considering joining Masonry and you are given an option of going the one-day conferral, if you absolutely must, do it. If you don't have to and you can go the traditional way, do that. But either way, make a commitment in your heart and your mind that you're going to become the best version of yourself possible through the lessons offered in Freemasonry. And I invite you to join me on my Masonic podcast, The Winding Stairs. I have 3 episodes that have been published, but nobody has listened to because I'm having troubles with iTunes. But in the upcoming week, you will be receiving a blast of 3 brand new episodes. So
yay!
Sign up for The Winding Stairs.
I'm looking forward to episode 30. Thank you very much, Juan. All right, Jason.
All right. I am just going to drop the mic right here with the help of Brother Adam Thayer, who is one of our fellow Midnight Freemason contributors. And he says, I sacrificed thousands of commas for your degree. Please, someone think of the commas. and Donnie Dillon, the gauntlet has been thrown, my friend. You need to get on the meme making. So my idea, my final thoughts with one-day conferrals. I'm a little torn because my worshipful master and my senior warden, who are two phenomenal people, amazing masons and fantastic ritualists, were both one-day conferral masons. But at the same time, every August, our secretary reads off Masonic birthdays, and we have like 100 Masonic birthdays, and we look around the lodge, and there are like 3 people in the lodge who have Masonic birthdays that month. And that's some of that data that you've been looking for. So does it lessen the experience? I think unilaterally, we were talking about this before the show started, unilaterally, yes. It cheapens the experience somewhat just because you don't have that time to reflect. You're not going through the initiatic experience. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you can't be an amazing Mason, and that doesn't mean that going through a one-day conferral is unjustified. I think there's a time and a place, and I think you really have to soul search if you're a candidate deciding whether or not you're going to go through the one-day class, and then as a lodge, if you are in a jurisdiction that holds one-day conferrals, and you're receiving petitions for people who want to go through one-day classes, you had better put up the mentors to provide extra instruction and extra care for all of those one-day Masons if you ever want them to show up in lodge again.
Well said.
And I'll leave with that.
Drop the mic, Jason.
Boom.
All right, Adam, what are your thoughts?
Well, first I just want to say thanks for letting me come on. I mean, it's been really great getting to know you guys and watching what you're doing, and what you guys are doing is taking us to the next level. And I say us as the Masons, so keep it up. If anybody is interested, I do have copies of my book on Amazon, Earning Freemasonry, a one-day class redemption. Feel free to give it a read. Give me some feedback if you'd like. Other than that, I have to agree with all your books are up there. Other than that, I have to agree with
mine's downstairs.
What everybody said, I think, was very respectful of both camps. I can understand somebody's frustration and resentment, saying, how did he get that when I had to work for this? I understand that, but I also understand the guy's point of view because I went through it. Why did I do it the way I did? And now, since I'm educated, I can use that to benefit the craft. I can take my experience and hopefully turn it into a positive for the next person. Like I said, one-day classes exist. They're here. I will do my best to help the fraternity, but I should point out that usually our Pennsylvania one-day classes happen to fall on the same day as the Pennsylvania Academy of Masonic Knowledge, which is across the state for me. So I usually am not attending the one-day conferrals, but it's not that I'm against helping with the one-day conferrals.
Priorities, man. Come on.
Yep. So if you're interested in more of a deeper understanding of the topic, definitely check out Adam's book. And we have a link to it in our show notes.
Oh, and I should have said I also blog, but I have not blogged in a long time, a couple months, which is squareofvirtue.wordpress.com.
All right. Thank you, Adam. All right, in conclusion, for my wrap-up, I will kind of go back to the reference of the Knights Templar article and say that categorically I tend to lean more towards the Neo-Ancients in that I definitely show a lot more leaning towards the initiatic experience. And the reason I say that is Freemasonry is a system of morality. And that system is there in place to accomplish certain things. And so it's not a degree order of morality, it's a system. It is a process in which initiation, and enlightenment occurs. And so I'm going to fall more on that camp. That's my own personal experience. Tell me if you hate it, like it in the show notes. But I do believe in the process of the initiatic experience. It's there for a reason. However, that being said, I do have a very close friend who is a one-dayer who had to go through the one-day process, had actually started his journey, but had, for various reasons, had to step back. And so this gave him an opportunity to kind of close the loop and get over that hurdle in order to proceed with his Masonic journey. So it really accelerated those things that were out of his control. And so there is a time and a place. As Adam said, they're not, the one-day classes are not going away, and so they are there for those cases. If you like the show, definitely consider helping us out and giving us a donation. You can go to the MasonicRoundtable.com. You'll see a shop button at the top, and you can buy a new pin. We have new pins coming in, and it's not going to show up well on here, and Jason will show it.
Yeah.
Where we've got a nice little green triangle that goes
They
along
are
with it.
really sweet.
I will say, they turned out really well.
Yeah, I like these better than the original run of pins. So if you bought an old pin, just go ahead and buy the new one because I like these better.
Get the entire set. They're like Pokemon. You got to collect them all.
Catch 'em all.
They're like Beanie Babies. They'll be worth millions of dollars someday.
Someday. The last thing I'll add is, hey, we did kind of do a lighthearted poke at the Scottish Rite. Challenge your Scottish Rites. See if you can emulate what they do up in Minnesota. And, these other degrees are not exempt from the same analysis that we're trying to provide on the show. So, again, try to challenge the institution that you have and how we can make that better. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.